Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Believe in Bears. My name is George Christopoulos and my co-host Corey Wootton. But first, today's episode is presented by BetOnline.ag. And BetOnline, they'd like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs. And look, we're just a couple days away from NFL Wildcard Weekend, so the only place to go for that action is BetOnline because it's the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action in 2022. New year, but new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up. And today, you can receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit just when you use promo code BLEAV, Believe, to get started. Football, basketball, hockey, boxing, favorite Vegas casino games. It's got it all, so don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2022 season and year. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming into the pod. I don't know, what should we talk about? There's a lot going on at Hallis Hall this week. They cleaned house. Ryan Pace is gone. Matt Nagy's out the door, and now let us usher in an American Idol version of coaching candidates and prospective GMs. But first, let's bring in my co-host, a guy who should be on the list. We should be interviewing him right now for general manager, former Bears defensive end and Fox 32 Chicago's own Corey Wootton. What's up, Corey?
What's going on, man? I don't know if I want the job as the GM right now after that press conference. So I'm a little nervous.
But you get all the power. First, you get the power, and then you get
Exactly.
Hallis Hall. Yeah, Corey, let's dive right into it, man. I know you maybe didn't watch every single second. Bears fans are losing their minds. It's been a polarizing week. Every single time George McCaskey seems to get in front of a microphone, there seems to be a reaction. So I will ask you, what is your reaction to George McCaskey's press conference at the end of the season as they begin their coaching and general manager search?
Man, it really took me back, honestly. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched tidbits of it.
You're lucky.
And just some of the verbiage and things when he was talking about Olin Kreutz and called him a liar, and then talking about, hey, I'm just a fan first, I'm not a talent evaluator, and it just seemed like he said all the wrong things, and there's like a politically correct way to do it without ruffling any feathers, and he failed to do that. You're thinking, hey, we're going to see what he's going to say as the leader of the team. His mom is the owner of the team, but we're going to see, he's the party responsible for speaking and telling us everything that's going to go on, and have the fans get excited about this new future of the Bears. And I think Bears fans were just really, really pissed off, to be honest. There was an article in the Tribune about why we should not support the Bears franchise anymore. And I was like, whoa, I don't think that would ever happen because, Bear fans are diehard. But, I think there's just a way to go about things, and he didn't do it well. And, especially like one of your all-time great offensive linemen and Olin Kreutz, somebody that's killing it on TV now and has respect around the league that should be a Hall of Famer, to call him a liar. I think that's just a very bold statement. If you don't, and it's Olin is, I'm gonna bet my money on it that he's telling the truth about everything that's going on. He's not a liar. He's definitely a different dude, and he might ruffle some people's feathers, but he's not a liar. So I think that was pretty bold to say that.
Yeah, what Bears fan says they don't like Olin Kreutz? That's the part that I'm a little confused about. And Corey, I used this analogy earlier today. He's the CEO of Dairy Queen, but he's just here to eat the ice cream, folks. That's it, right? He's not here to do anything else. And it speaks to something a little bit different. And Corey, we were talking about what they need to do power structure-wise and figure everything out. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. But isn't this just another example of George McCaskey should not be in a microphone delivering the message for the Chicago Bears? It just needs to be somebody else. And you look around town, Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't get in front of a microphone after every year and answer a bunch of questions at a press conference. You rarely see Rocky Wirtz out there. Go down the list. Even Tom Ricketts, he writes out a printed letter, but he doesn't really answer questions. Doesn't this speak to the thing that all Bears fans want, is someone out in front, president of football operations, or maybe it will be the general manager that should be delivering this message and not George McCaskey? He's just not good at it. I mean, and that's fair to say.
Yeah, I'm hoping whoever they hire as the GM is very well spoken and can kind of connect to the fan base and get them excited. Because it's been tough, the past 2 years with the Bears, and just since Lovey was fired, it's just been a very tough time, and I think the fans have been very frustrated, which arguably, deserves that. But I'm just hoping whatever GM and head coach come in really invigorate this fan base, because right now they're very irritated and pissed off. So I'm hoping that we can have some good hires that can lead to people feeling good about next season and feeling good about the Bears.
What is your take on? There's two schools of thought on this. One of them is you need as many football minds in the room as possible to help make good decisions. And then the other side of it is what George McCaskey and the Bears are saying, is saying when we hire a general manager, he will have the most power in the organization. In theory, that would make the job very attractive to whoever wants to take over that role. What side do you kind of land on with that? I mean, can the Bears possibly get this right in theory if they get the right general manager who then is that voice and delivers that message? Or should they be trying to, put together as many voices as possible?
I think, some of the best teams, I think they have a kind of balanced power structure, excuse me. And I think, obviously the GM, he's going to be usually making the final decision a lot of times, usually with, the owner, et cetera. It seems like the way the Bears are, the owners don't have too much say per se from what McCaskey was saying. So, I would like a lot of people, directors of scouting, different presidents, et cetera, that can all work together and find the best talent, found the best developers of a football team. Because I think that at times that's what's kind of struggles. Sometimes it's development of talent. You look at the teams that do it really well. The Patriots, they've been doing it for years. The Packers, look at all the great picks that they've had. Look at a guy like, Devontae Adams that was a third rounder, I believe, that kind of, at one point they didn't think he was going to be that guy. So I think the Packers, and Patriots have done that really well. They've had a lot of good scouts, a lot of good scouting directors, a lot of good football minds that can pick talent and then have the coaching staff around them to develop that talent.
In your opinion, obviously, it looks like we're doing a little bit of a rinse repeat, and we're hoping for better results. We'll see what happens. But the last time this happened, they brought in Ernie Accorsi to advise the McCaskey family and the chairman of the board to decide on what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
In that particular case, they hired Ryan Pace, a bright young mind. You're hearing that a lot with a lot of these candidates, bright young minds. They brought in Ryan Pace, and then they told him that he had to hire John Fox, and that was the advice of Ernie Accorsi, a guy who's not a part of the organization but was hired to help them. They're doing the same thing with Bill Polian. Talk a little bit about maybe what your opinion is on Bill Polian, and do you think that method can possibly work to hopefully have the Bears get it right this time?
I'm hoping he could offer some advice. Bill Polian, is a well-respected guy in this league. What he did for the Colts for years, very knowledgeable. But I'm just hoping is not a thing where, obviously they're going to select the GM first. They give him reign to pick the coach that he wants to. And I think if they pick the right person, they're going to realize that they need to, number one, pick a offensive mind, whether that's a coordinator, right, or a head coach, right? We need one or the other, right? So let's say, different options, right? There could be a potential of Brian Flores, right, for example. But this is where the GM comes in and says, Flores, you're my guy. Let me pick the offensive staff, okay? You handle all your defensive staff, your special teams. I love what you did in Miami for that. Let me focus on this offensive coordinator, because that's the problem with the Bears, right? When Lovie Smith was the coach, the defense was on point, right? But we could never make the step with the offense, right? Same thing with John Fox, right? Defense was good. We were rocking. Couldn't get the offensive coordinator. I think the best year was maybe when Adam Gase was there, or possibly Trestman. I'm not really sure.
I think Trestman statistically probably bore the best fruit. I think Adam Gase and Jay Cutler did have a really, really good connection, though, that did yield good results for sure.
Yeah, but I think that's one or the other, right? We have to have the offensive-minded head coach that is calling the plays like an Andy Reid, or have a defensive-minded coach, but have whatever GM that is say, listen, you handle that, I'll handle the offensive staff, I'll handpick it, and have Justin Fields in mind, right? A person that can cater this offense to him, really script for success, and elevate his game, because he has all the tools it takes to be a great quarterback in this league. And I think people around the league, I brought this up a while ago about, people were talking about, which job would you rather have, the Giants or the Bears? And people were like, hands down, the Bears, right? Daniel Jones hasn't done anything since he's been there, right? But Justin Fields, a young guy, they weren't catering this offense to him. Look what numbers he put up at Pittsburgh in the second half. Look at the first Detroit game. He does things that other quarterbacks can't do. So I think people realize that Justin Fields is super talented, right? Mm-hmm. But it's all about surrounding him with the right pieces, right? And offensive coordinator, head coach, if we want to go that route. but it has to be an offensive mind that scripts for success. You look at John Harbaugh, what he did for Lamar Jackson, right? And then we talked about it, Tyler Huntley, and then Josh Johnson, right?
Yeah.
All of them do well. And listen, they're not all the same talent-wise. Huntley, maybe he could play a lot better than we thought, right? But Josh Johnson's
he showed
been a
over
journeyman.
time. Yeah.
He did. But Josh Johnson's been a journeyman. He's been on countless amount of teams, here and there, and they script for success for him to make him look good. And that's the mark of a good coach. So I'm hoping whoever they have is similar to that, because Justin Fields is one of the more talented quarterbacks in this league. And if you get him confidence, I think the sky's the limit for him. And I think he'll be a perennial Pro Bowler and possibly a Hall of Famer if we put the right pieces in place for him.
So am I hearing this correctly then that, because the Bears said in the press conference that they don't care which one they hire first. They'll hire a coach first in front of a GM. You got to do GM first and then the coach, correct?
It's the power structure. It's the power structure, right? The GM is the head of everything, right? He makes the final decision, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, right, it seems like with the Bears' power structure, he's going to have all the decision making in him, right?
Yeah.
They're not really, the McCaskeys aren't looking too much into making these decisions, right? That's why they're asking for help and etc. So the GM has to be first. You cannot do the head coach and then GM, because that's when you have problems, right? Because then the GM, you hire the head coach first, the GM may say, I don't like that, right? And then it becomes this thing the whole time and say, oh, I wish I could have picked him as opposed to him. And then it becomes a whole thing. And then, I don't like that at all. GM first, then the head coach.
Yeah, I feel like that was because, as we're seeing right now, the Bears are scouring the earth, and as they should, right? I think that there's over 20 GM candidates and over 20 head coach candidates right now that have even been reached out to. And Doug Peterson interviewed today. We're taping this on a Wednesday. I think they said that before the Jim Harbaughs and the Sean Paytons of the world. I know Sean Payton isn't going to work, but I think they just said, if we need to get a coach in house, we will handle that. Hey, just shot across the bow to the Ryan Days, the Sean Paytons, the Harbaughs. We will bring you in. We'll figure it out before we get the GM. My question for you is, how important is it that Justin Fields is involved in the GM head coaching process? Should he be meeting with these people? I know it's only second year, but he is the future. What say you on that?
Yeah, I would say not yet. I don't think he has that power yet. I think if he's a guy that's, maybe absolutely lit it up this year and he was like a Justin Herbert from the year before, then we can possibly be talking. But I think that's really only for guys that have really established themselves in the league. And so I think obviously it'd be nice to include him, but I just don't think he's there yet with the star power and respect of the organization to be in those type of meetings yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. I mean, I think X's and O's will get you pretty far, and Justin Fields has a lot to learn and still develop in this league, despite his immense talent that he has. Let's talk about the coaching rumor of the week. It is Brian Flores right now. Very intriguing name. Yeah. I'll be honest with you, even before he got fired, I loved him. I liked him a lot as a head coach. I like a guy with a little bit of fire. The Dolphins, for the most part, have been kind of a joke as a franchise over the last 5-10 years, and he's made them very competitive with Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then this season with Tua Tagovailoa. Where do you stand on Brian Flores right now, and do you think he could be a fit in Chicago?
No, I like him a lot. I think what he did in Miami was pretty impressive, and I was very surprised that he got fired. How do you get fired when you go 10-6 the year before, right? And 9-8, and when you don't have the quarterback situation figured out, right? And
that's what I want to know from you, Corey. Like, I mean, dude, you played in the league, and you know the inner workings, right? Like, it just my BS meter is kind of going off on how he's kind of getting dragged through the mud of all the power that he did and did not want, the GM's relationship with the owner. Have you been able to kind of read the tea leaves a little bit about what that's going on right now? Because I'm just kind of not buying a guy that was really successful and wanted things a certain way, and no one took too kindly to it.
I think it was the thing where he didn't get along with possibly the GM or the owner, right? I think they wanted a say in who was the quarterback, and he kind of felt like, hey, I'm the head coach. I'm going to make these decisions. And I think that was the power structure, right? Because at times Tua was out there, Fitzpatrick was on there. Yeah. So I think it was like, he was getting something from up top, like, hey, you need to play them. And then he got to a point where he's like, I'm going to play who gives us the best chance to win. And you look at this half of the year, the second half of the year, they were playing really well. You look at that game they had against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, I mean, that was probably one of his worst games in his career. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at him. And I think Brian Flores, you look at the players from Miami, right? After he got fired, they were like, couldn't believe it. I mean, 20, 30, 40 guys all tweeting like, are you serious? And then not only that, a lot of people around the league were like, what is this? Like a guy that's that talented and people want to play for him, right? The people that really respect them. And his track record the past 2 seasons, I feel like how could you fire somebody like that, right? That's the key to winning in this league a lot of times is people say, well, yes, you have to have the right coaches, right? That can script for success, put people in the right positions. But you gotta have a coach that players want to play, that run through a wall for.
Yes.
And Brian Flores is that type
dude.
of guy, right? So I would love if he had the opportunity to coach the Bears, right? Because I love what he would do defensively. My only concern is that offense, right? And if we could have a GM say, listen, Brian Flores, you're our guy. Let me control the offensive side. Hey, everything else, your wheelhouse. I won't step on your toes, but this is me. And I don't know. We'll see. Most coaches like, hey, I want to pick this and that. But maybe, the way he was controlling the defense and special teams, maybe he would let that slide. But I don't know. So I'd either like that situation or possibly a guy like Jim Harbaugh, or Ryan Day, a very offensive-minded coach that has a proven track record for scripting for success. I really like the Harbaugh thing. Honestly, like Ryan Day was initially my favorite. And then you talked about Harbaugh, and I'm like, ooh, I really like that. Because of San Francisco. I mean, talk about how dominant they were, in that stretch from like 2012 to 2016. They were pretty dominant. Running the football, mobile quarterback in Colin Kaepernick, Frank Gore, David Montgomery, right? We got a guy like Cole Kmet. He's not Vernon Davis, but I don't think he's even scratched the surface of what he can do. And I think he's a better blocker than Vernon Davis. I don't think he'll be the pass catcher of him, but I think he could be more consistent. Look at what he did this year, with a kind of scraped together offensive game plan. And I mean, he's just been improving. So I really like that, and then possibly we'll see, maybe if he get the defense and maybe get Vic Fangio and, who knows,
Yeah, get the gang back together. And look, Corey, man, again, Believe in Bears fans that are listening, and maybe it's your first time. Corey, you played against those Harbaugh teams, man, and you've talked in the past how hard it was to play against them. So your perspective means something, and we're talking about former Bears and getting their insights like Olin Kreutz and others out there, man. Yeah, that is something that I deeply respect. My final thing on Flores, just real quick, and just tell me if I'm right, wrong, or off base. And maybe it's because I'm in my 30s, but one of the knocks on Flores was there was a anonymous source that said Flores didn't know how to handle some of the younger Dolphins on the team, and that he treated the veterans. He would joke around and have a good time with the veterans, but then he'd be a little bit harder on the younger Dolphins. And they didn't, quote unquote, they didn't treat the younger Dolphins like men. And maybe I am in my mid 30s or whatever, but you're a 21-year-old guy trying to make your way in the game, and these are veteran players. Can you talk about that dynamic a little bit? I smell a little BS on that one too. Am I wrong?
I do too, because I feel like as a younger player in this league, when I was younger, guys like myself and Henry Melton, he was a year older than me. A guy like Rob Marinelli used to chew us out, right? Yeah. And that's how it was, right? The older guys, if they messed up. Yeah, and it's just, once you've established yourself, and then, my third year when I really established myself, if I'd mess up on a play, he wouldn't be as hard on me as he was my first 2 years. It was like, everything I did, he, chewed me out, and it made me a better player. I'm not going to lie. And I think that's how it should be a lot of times with younger players. But, nowadays, a lot of people are sensitive, about everything. Oh, coaches can't yell at me. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? If you're a younger player and you haven't established yourself, your coach should be able to chew you out, right? If he's putting his hands on you, that's something that you can't respect, right? You don't put your hands on another man or anything like that. But yelling at somebody, I think that is okay, I think, in my opinion, especially for a younger player, if you're going to get him going and get him motivated. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that's how it is in this league. Veterans earn a certain level of respect because of their track record, right? Younger guys are proving themselves, so coaches can be hard on them. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, earn your stripes, carry your
Yeah,
water, however you want to call it. I mean, that just kind of seems to be the way that it goes. I mean, I was
yeah,
kind of reading that and being like, well, I just don't understand. And
yeah.
and the other thing with Flores that's kind of been sort of percolating in my mind a little bit that has me a little intrigued, and we've talked a little bit about Josh McDaniels previously on this pod too, is that I'm just kind of intrigued on now all of a sudden is saying Brian Flores, they're putting the word can't in front of him.
Mhm.
Brian Flores can't get along with players.
Yeah,
Brian Flores wants too much power. He can't work with the general manager, can't work with the owner. The same stuff that Josh McDaniels said. And if I can name check guys like Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, I know it's easy and it's obvious, but those are guys that had a first round that didn't work very well. And then they got their second job and they already had all the talent in the world and all the pieces were kind of there, but they maybe had to kind of adjust a couple of things and do
oh, yeah,
things a little bit differently. Where Brian Flores didn't play the politics in Miami. Well, I'm not saying he's got to change who he is, but maybe he can do things maybe just a little bit differently in his second spot. I don't know. I just that sort of stuff kind of intrigues me a little bit. Jim Harbaugh's the same guy, right? Isn't he also the dude that kind of struggled getting along with management, ended up going to the college game, and now
yeah,
when he gets back, he gets kind of another opportunity to do it right. This doesn't change the talent in the coach just because
exactly.
maybe he had a misstep in his first round. I mean, am I onto something a little bit with some of these guys that they're interviewing?
No, yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, and I think that's the thing in this league sometimes, right? Like you talked about Belichick, right? His first time around, it wasn't the most successful, and then as he got on, he kind of tweaked this and see what worked for him, and that's how it is with any good head coach, right? They learn from their mistakes, right? And that's who you want someone. I think a guy like Harbaugh has learned a lot, right, about what he could do at the NFL level, right? Because some people said at times he was a little too hard on his players or whatever. And once he went back to Michigan, I'd heard that he was better about even college players, right? Getting
Oh,
on them, etc. And I think that
okay.
sometimes becomes a thing in the league where, head coaches, like that's why Shiano did not work out, right? Because he was too college minded. I can get on these guys. I had people that I knew that played for Tampa Bay when he was there, and they were just like, this guy's a joke. Like, are you serious? Like, you're going to talk to a grown man that's been a starter for a few years in this league and say like, "Oh, you're not doing this," or calling them out in a meeting. You don't do stuff like that. And I think people realize real quick, what you can and can't do. And I've usually when coaches get older, they get more mellow, they get more calm, and they learn from their past experiences. So, you know, I really like the Harbaugh situation because I think that'd be a great fit. T- the top people for me is Harbaugh,
Hmm.
Ryan Day, and Flores. Those that's my trio right there. I feel pretty good about that. But I think if they have a good GM in place, I'd feel a lot better about that because it's all about picking the right people and then developing that talent with the coaching staff. So they have to work hand in hand. And obviously, the coaching staff, GM, and all the different scouts, they work together in picking that talent. So that's what I think. They just have to be on the same page. In certain organizations that kind of have a revolving door, the Detroit Lions, they're not on the same page all the time with some of those decisions, etc. And the past 10 years with the Bears, it's kind of been up and down as well. So I think there's been a disconnect, with front office, the coaching staff, etc. Kind of who we're picking, what we want to do, what direction we want to go to. So whatever GM, coaching staff, everything else, all the staff has to work together,
Hmm.
and be able to pick, develop, and get the right talent.
And what I love so much about the three candidates that you just put out there, aside from a football perspective, is I think it's clear that what the McCaskies and what the Bears organization, the chairman, the board of trustees, or whatever, I think what they really thirst for is a stability. I've said this on this pod before. I think that the Bears are jealous of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they would love nothing more than to have Mike Tomlin at the helm for 15 years and a GM that's around for 10 plus years, which is probably why they gave Ryan Pace so much time. And what you just named with all three of those candidates are those three guys, Harbaugh, Day, and Flores. Those guys could come in right away and I think provide that power and stability that maybe the organization has lacked a little bit. George McCaskey in his press conference said, and I feel like it was a cop out, and in a weird way he threw Nagy under the bus. But he said that he was taken aback when Nagy asked for his opinion on Justin Fields and Andy Dalton of who to start. Well, and to be very fair, Nagy could just be kind of asking the chairman's opinion to be nice and whatever, but he was taken aback by it. I think he's just screaming to have someone come in and be like, I'm taking over this organization, right?
Yeah,
The Brian Flores, too much power, wanted too much control. I think the Bears are thirsty for
yeah,
that. I think that's
yeah.
actually what they're kind of dying for.
You know,
And those guys like Jim Harbaugh are those dudes that'll probably come in there and do that exact thing. And I hope that that's something that they can kind of match up
yeah,
personally. And with the
yeah,
general manager out there, I'll be honest, man, you hear a lot of names. Everyone says that they're a bright young candidate. I think, can you speak on this too? I think everyone has their people out there, maybe doing a little PR
yeah,
work for each person. I mean, we heard that with Ryan
yeah,
Pace about how bright and young and intelligent he was, and it just
yeah.
didn't work out. So the GM I can't really speak on, but the coach we can kind of drill in and figure out. My question for you is they interviewed Doug Peterson and Brian Daboll today. Is that a no thank you? Because it's a no thank you for me.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not really interested in that. I really like those candidates. Only the three that we talked about, right? Flores, Day, and Harbaugh. I think the thing that concerns me about Day is I don't know if he's really going to take command of everything like the Bears might want him to, right?
Yeah.
Have a lot of say in everything, just because he's fairly inexperienced as a head coach in general. I think he's been there 3 or 4 years, I believe, since Urban
Right,
Meyer
and then
left.
he was assistant in the NFL, so he has worked in the
Yeah,
NFL, but yeah.
yes, but I guess for what the Bears situation is, right? With McCaskey's not really wanting a say in anything, right? The GM and head coach are going to have to be controlling everything. It seems like. So I don't know if Ryan Day may be ready for that, or if he wants to do that, right? Because some coaches are like, I just want to coach the team and that's it, right? But I think a guy like Harbaugh, he would want all the say and who's picked, what we're doing, everything that's going on hand in hand with the GM. And I think Flores would be the same way. So I guess we'll kind of see how everything unfolds. But if you had to pick one, who is your number one candidate right now, in your opinion?
So I like Flores. I'll be honest with you. I really
Yeah,
do. That was a real surprise to me. I think that the Giants fired Joe Judge because they wanted to get in the sweepstakes for him and talk to him. He just feels like a guy who not only can deliver a very strong message to the fan base with conviction, but I think, as you're talking about, a guy that can build a culture in a locker room where it's no nonsense, it's results based. And I know for a fact that he liked Justin Herbert over Tua, which maybe led to some other different conversations between
yeah,
ownership. I mean, Justin Herbert has the same build and makeup as Justin Fields. I think that he's exactly the kind of Chicago brand that we'd like. And Corey, man, you'd appreciate this. With Justin Fields at the helm, we still got to build a good defense, man. And I've talked about this a lot. Our
yeah,
defense is going to be in a state of transition the next couple of years. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of thinking that the Dolphins messed up. And
yeah,
he's a young coach that could come in and maybe be our head coach for the next 10 years.
yeah,
Harbaugh's right up there. My power rankings, I'm still keeping Sean Payton up there because a guy's got a dream, Corey. A guy's got a dream out there. But if you check it out, Flores was right behind him. Ryan Day was right behind him, and then Jim Harbaugh was right there. Those would be my choices right now. And honestly, I wouldn't
yeah,
be upset with any of them.
yeah,
I think the offensive coordinator flavor of the week, I would have some questions with. I really would. If it is
yeah,
a Dable, if it is a Nathaniel Hackett, something along those lines,
yeah,
I'd be a little skeptical on that front. I'll be honest with you.
yeah, yeah. And for me, my number one, I think, would be Jim Harbaugh, in
Yeah.
my opinion, because I think offensively, I'm thinking strictly offensively. I think he will get the team where they need to be to win
Mm-hmm.
games and be a successful top five, top 10 offense eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's good at evaluating the coaching staff that's going to be coaching with him. Right. I think
Yeah.
he's going to have the good defensive coordinator,
Find the
good staff.
coordinators. Yeah,
Exactly.
man.
And I think he's good at that. Look what he did in San Francisco, right? He has the experience. He's been in some clutch games, right?
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco, when he was there with Colin Kaepernick and company, they had some really good runs in the playoffs. They made it to the Super Bowl, right? I think he has what it takes to take this Bears team, right? I really love Flores. I think he'd be a great candidate, but I think he's going to end up for the Giants because he's a New York guy,
It
right?
makes
It's going to
sense.
be in his
That's why
backyard.
they did it.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. That's
yeah,
why they did it. Absolutely.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm so with you on that one. And look, and look, man, you are selling me You're selling me and you're turning me on Harbaugh by the very second. Because even if, let's just play in the world of, let's just say Harbaugh is the kind of guy that comes in and some of these guys just kind of lose their luster after, a cycle. You know what I mean? The Don Nelsons of the world, the Larry Browns. I'm sorry, I'm using a basketball term.
Yeah.
But if Jim Harbaugh can get you to the mountaintop in the next 3 to 6 years, in theory, Justin Fields will be a fully formed Pro Bowl Hall of Fame type quarterback. And then at that point, if you do move on from Harbaugh, you can find someone that fits that skill set and you kind of play within that window. And then maybe you find the next young coach or whatever to play in Arlington Heights or whatever that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In 5 or 6
Right.
years. I'm with you on that. And I think they're doing their due diligence right now. I don't think they need to talk to Harbaugh very long to hand him the job. So I'm glad that they're talking to everybody else out there. And I hope it definitely comes to fruition. And I think it's going to be a while, too. I think we're going to be talking about this for a little bit. I don't know if we're going to get any word on this in the next couple of weeks. I mean, do you think this is going to happen fast, or we're going to be kind of stewing on this one for a little while?
I think we'll probably see something probably in the next 2 weeks for sure. I think there'll be some decisions made. I just don't think Flores is going to come to the Bears, in my opinion. Like I think New York, they probably got that locked up. Yeah. He's from New York. He'll probably want to be closer to his family. I think everybody that's from the East Coast probably had dreams about playing or coaching for the hometown Giants. So I think he'll end up for the Giants, and I think that's what they want. I think their fan base would be excited about him. So I think he's going to end up there. So I think Jim Harbaugh, I think that's my pick, because I just love what he did, in San Francisco. I mean, he really turned around, that franchise, and shoot, they were a top 5 offense every year that he was there, when Colin Kaepernick was there before he got injured and all that. Smash mouth football, one of the hardest offenses to defend. But it's about putting the right offensive line pieces there. And so that's going to be something.
So yeah, this is our final question, Corey. GM Corey, General Manager Corey. Let's just role play for a second here. You're walking into the office to interview for the general manager position. Let's say I'm George McCaskey. Damn it, I don't want to play this character, but I will. I'm an actor. I can adapt. Let's
see it.
But I sit down with you and I go, Corey. Give me what are the first 2 things that you would attack on the Chicago Bears roster for next year? What are the areas that you think have the biggest concern? Just give me 2 of them. Which are the first ones that you're going to attack to try and fortify, improve upon, and make better?
There's a couple.
Yeah.
If they're the chief number 1 is a left tackle, right? I think that's number 1.
I will sign that check. Here's the checkbook, Corey. That's
exactly.
The first thing. Yes.
Exactly. So
Eric Armstead. Let's go.
Yeah, right. So we need the left tackle, and then it's kind of a tie for me. Wide receiver and defensive back. I think those are the 2 positions that we need. Obviously, Allen Robinson is not going to be with the Bears next year. He's a free agent. But like we said, maybe possibly getting a number 2 receiver to complement Darnell Mooney, right? And then we need some help in the secondary cornerback, and we need another safety. That's something that we could possibly acquire over free agency. Maybe somebody that's a proven veteran, that's talented. Maybe his price won't be too high, because I know the Bears are kind of strapped a little bit for some cash. So I guess we'll see how everything works out. But I think left tackle, wide receiver, defensive back, those are the three majors. I feel good about defensive line, Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn. Feel good about Travis Gibson. Hopefully Eddie Goldman will have a bounce back year. Hopefully we can get Keem Hicks back for the right price. I talked about 2-year deal, being front heavy on that first year, because I think he's a valuable member of this team. Feel good about the linebacking core, Roquan Smith and company. I think maybe possibly another linebacker, but I don't think that's a chief concern for us. I think defensive back is probably the biggest concern defensively.
Corey, you're hired. you start tomorrow. If you could start this afternoon, that'd be fantastic.
Let's go.
Yeah.
So what wide receivers you thinking about for free agency? I know it's kind of slim pickings at this point. You look at a guy like Devontae Adams. He's probably going to stay in Green Bay. Allen Robinson's not there. I'm intrigued though about Godwin, Chris Godwin, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at what we did with Allen Robinson when he first got here, right? Coming off an ACL, maybe possibly giving him a prove-it deal, right? A one year deal with an option to go to a potentially 4-year deal if he proves himself and he's back for his knee is 100%, et cetera. Just because the way guys come back from ACLs nowadays, they usually come back pretty well. It's not a given. It's a gamble.
Don't say that to
at
Tariq
this point.
Cohen, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Look at Tariq Cohen, right? A guy that's not. Usually, a lot of times when people struggle to come back with ACLs, it's usually bigger guys, heavier guys that have a lot of load coming on their knees. A guy like Tariq Cohen is light and nimble and, doesn't weigh much.
There's a dirty little secret that I think he had to go back under the knife again. And they're not saying he had something happen and maybe an infection or who knows what happened. And they had to go back in and do it again. So he got kind of backed up a little bit.
It's tough, but I would like to gamble on something like that, right? Because the risk to reward, right? If you just as long as you phrase it as a 1-year deal, you give him a pretty good dollar amount, maybe 8-9 million, somewhere around there. And then with the potential to re-up to a 4-year deal after he proves himself. And then, if he doesn't prove himself, you're done with that on that year. And then, there's some other guys. AJ Green's going to be out there. He's a veteran. He's coming towards the end of his career.
Yeah, and so the thing with AJ is I just don't know if AJ is going to want to come to Chicago because, as you said, end of career. I could see him going to Tampa Bay, right, and playing with a guy like Tom Brady for a Super Bowl. And here's what I'd say, and I don't want this to be a pessimistic bent, but we're kind of putting on our GM hats a little bit. Yeah. One of the things that the general manager might have to say to the fan base is, hey, look, we got a lot of dead money in our cap coming next year, and we're gonna have to clean. We're going to have to do a lot of raking of these leaves off of our front lawn for a year and get our cap straight. So it might be a little tough, right? And I love the idea of a Chris Godwin, and if he's amenable to a 1 year, I'm super into it. But again, I'm with you. I'm thinking quantity with a hope for quality. I do like Christian Kirk a whole lot. I think he's probably going to cost maybe a little bit more than maybe we would want to at that point. But what about a guy? Let's throw another guy coming off an ACL. What about a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster? What about, honestly.
I like that, honestly. He has shoulder injury, right? I believe.
No, he had the shoulder, and then I think he's got an ACL now. I think
I thought it was a shoulder.
Yeah, well, we'll double check. It's been multiple injuries. Yeah, if you want to look that up real quick, and I can kind of buy you some time. Because what I like about Juju, just real quick, is obviously he kind of supplants the Allen Robinson role a little bit. He can play in the slot. He can play in the intermediate passing game. And then I just like his blocking ability on outside zone reads for David Montgomery or whatever it is that you want to do and free some guys up. And if you go out and you draft a guy – in the 4th, 5th round that you like, you got Darnell all of a sudden. You got a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. You got a draft pick. Try and bring back Jakeem Grant. And then again, I do like a professional route runner like Emmanuel Sanders to try and give you a little something extra, or someone that's going to get cut. You know what I mean? There's obviously going to be something of value that's going to get cut out there. And I think Juju you can get for $6 million.
And it's a shoulder. It's a shoulder. You went out for a shoulder.
It is the
shoulder. So that's a good sign. I feel good about that, right? It's not going to affect his cutting or route running. Shoulder, that's a no-brainer, especially for a receiver. So I feel good about that. I really like that. I think that would be a good addition because he's really a number 2, right? He was trying to be a number 1 in Pittsburgh. It really wasn't. AB, that was his show. And then when AB left, you saw the drop in production. You saw, him try to really carry the team, and he couldn't.
There were reports out there too. If you remember, when he first burst on the scene, he had down the field threat ability. And what I got kind of mixed up was that there are reports that he does a lot of maintenance on his knee week in and week out, and it's just kind of sort of sapped that little extra burst down the field. Still a really quality receiver and a dude that plays the right way, a dude that cares a whole bunch. A guy when you talk about prove it deal, like that is the guy that I would want to definitely bring in to play with a guy like Justin Fields. So Justin to Juju, I can get into that.
Yeah, I would feel good about that. Bring back Jakeem Grant as well as another viable option for a 3 or 4 receiver. Maybe Goodwin again, Marquise Goodwin. I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise. I mean, he's a burner. He's kind of your deep threat. You got Darnell Mooney. That's a combination of both. He can beat you deep. He's a great route runner. He's got to work on the hands this offseason. I think that was what kind of held him back a little bit, but he really established himself, in my opinion, as one of the better route runners in this league. and then a couple in Cole Kmet, really continuing to improve blocking, and then hopefully we can get those red zone targets and touchdowns, because that's where we have to put the ball in the end zone, in the red zone, and that's where the tight end position comes in handy.
Corey, we got to get out of here. It doesn't mean we're out of stuff to talk about. It just means that we're teasing the audience, because we're going to be coming back soon to just give you all the updates on Bears offseason as things develop, and there is plenty to talk about. Today's episode of Believe in Bears was brought to you by betonline.ag. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV. My name is Joey Christopoulos. Follow me on the socials at Joey Sports Guy. My man Corey Wootton, throw out your socials. Take us home on a great pod, man. There's going to be a lot to talk about, man, and we're here to figure it out for you.
Yeah, the offseason, we're going to have the combine. We're going to have the GM search, the head coach search. It's going to be a lot of fun, tracking everything that's going to be going on, the free agents, etc. And into the 2021 season. Good riddance to that. I'm looking forward to the future with the Bears, honestly, because I have a good feeling that they're going to put the right pieces in place, GM, coaching staff. And, I think that's really what it comes down to. The teams that really do well in this league are the teams that start from the top floor, right? With the GM, the head coach, work your way down. You have the right coaching staff, you have the right scouts, and the coaches develop that talent. That's the key. That's any good team in this league. They draft and develop the talent well. So hopefully the Bears can continue to do that and be like a team like the Patriots, like the Chiefs have been as of late. Hopefully we can get in that trend, what Arizona's trying to build over there, stuff like that. So I'm hoping that trend, and we're going to keep you guys updated. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, at Corey Wootton, COREY, W2Os, 2Ts, ON. We love you guys' feedback, love your support.